Hello and welcome to today's event, Delivering Innovation for Telco Transformation, brought to you by Total Telecom in partnership with Intel. You have joined the track exploring the Internet of Things, led by Karen Truitt, Global Director of IoT Sales at Intel. If you have any questions for the panel, please post them in the Q&A box and our panel will answer them towards the end of the session. And now, without further ado, I will hand over to Karen to introduce the session.
Thank you, Chris, and thanks to Total Telecom for arranging the session today. I wanted to kick off with a little bit of a baseline on the topic, as well as introduce the panelists. So with that, the topic today is IoT and Edge. That is obviously a very broad topic that can go in many different directions. So I'm going to put a little bit of scope around what it is that we are going to cover today, because it can just spiderweb into many different areas. Let me start by saying that IoT is not necessarily anything new. It has evolved from what used to be called M2M. And the telcos and the industry have evolved from just connecting the devices, which is really kind of the traditional M2M space of let's connect the devices. So we've moved beyond connect the devices. We are now into let's make the devices smarter and more intelligent. And the next step that we're leaning towards is how do we then make those devices not just smarter, but autonomous. So you're starting to see this evolution of bringing in 5G, AI, cloud technologies, and now edge compute into the conversation. And so that's really the area that I wanted to explore today is, once we start to see this convergence of, at Intel, we call it IT plus OT plus CT, which I think is starting to become more of an industry term. So you have informational technology combining with operational technology, and now adding in the connectivity aspect to it. And doing that is not necessarily easy and is definitely not mature yet. So what I wanted to do today with the panelists is really explore, some of that innovation that's happening. What are some of the key use cases? Who are some of the partners that are now becoming part of the conversation? Because I'd argue no one company can actually deliver on that converged vision today. It really is a set of partnerships that have to come together. And then, what are some of the challenges and approaches that you guys have with your customers? So with that in mind, let me do kind of a quick intro. We have great panelists today. I'm very excited. These panelists have just a breadth of knowledge, years of experience in the industry. So let me start off by doing quick intros. Francis Cepero is the Director of Vertical Market Solutions at A1 Digital. He has a background that includes skills around machine learning, blockchain, and your business unit, Francis, I understand, helps to design and develop those solutions for your customers.
That's correct.
So thank you for joining. Alex Lorette comes to us from Proximus, where he is the Director of Enterprise Solutions. And Alex, you are focused on, again, that B2B advanced telco solution area within Proximus, where you do work around IoT, analytics, and I think you have API work that you bring into the mix as well. So thank you for that. And then Sandra Fernández Curias comes to us from Telefonica. And she has not only a background in being an entrepreneur 4 times, so obviously innovation is in her blood, but she also is working in the IoT and Big Data group, where she's the head of new business acceleration. And in that role, I understand you're responsible for finding and bringing in new solutions to the portfolio.
You're right. Thank you, Karen.
Perfect. Thank you. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and kick us off and start off with some questions. And the first question I want to start off with, because this is one of the first questions that we tend to get asked when we start talking to our customers, is what are some of the key use cases that really are taking advantage of edge computing and why? Francis, let me start off with you.
Yeah, thank you, Karen. So what we are seeing right now is that the market is evolving, as you rightly said, from being just a pure market of sense and react kind of scenarios, the broad use cases, into more of an autonomous discussion, basically an autonomous decision making that is being transferred to the point of action, and that point of action is sometimes the manufacturing floor, the shop floor. Sometimes it is the logistics. Sometimes we are seeing edge cases in many different areas, especially around manufacturing, industry 4.0. That's where we are seeing many of the use cases right now, where you need to have this type of low latency use cases where between sensing and reacting, the time that you want to minimize the time. But also very interesting in the areas of entertainment, we're seeing also a lot of edge cases as well. So for example, if you want to have the proper bandwidth and connectivity and low latency that you need to have, if you want to have augmented reality and virtual reality type of scenarios, where you implement basically a local, if you wish, a layer on top of the real world, that requires a lot of bandwidth. And in order to run that, it's very important to have an edge scenario where you have mostly what we call the campus 5G, the campus LTE could also solve that problem, but you need to have locally bound, low latency connectivity options.
Perfect. And Sandra, I think you also have been doing some exploration into that entertainment area. Can you touch on that or any of the other key use cases that you are seeing?
Yes, absolutely agree with Francis. We are also seeing the same industries pointing out with edge computing use cases. And specifically this year, we have come up with a sports analytics solution, which is close to this entertainment industry as well, where real data and as well the integration with esports and gaming platforms is key for the value proposition itself, and where edge computing is becoming essential. In the prior years, I would say that industrial and manufacturing companies were the key customers asking for these technologies, especially for autonomous vehicles and robots. So I think the main use case here is related to the real-time processing of high density data related mainly to image processing, or when you need the remote control of advanced robots or machinery in the industrial environment as well.
Perfect. Thank you, Sandra. Alex, did you have anything to add from your side?
A very similar view from Belgium and Benelux. We see now the market structuring very quickly around smart industry. So we see really mobile private network, 5G and edge technologies really converging and being the perfect match to actually unleash new use case. It can be monitoring indeed of manufacturing chains, but also use case for monitoring of vehicles inside an industry site. And there we see really indeed the power of combining these technologies, because of course the best latency you can get is by combining a very impressive mobile network performance with edge computing.
Perfect, thank you. So one of the other questions that we get asked many times is, there's been a lot of trials and testing and proof of concepts that has played out over the past, 2 to 3 years. Obviously, we'll continue to see that because that usually is the first step as part of a development process. But where do you all see, or how would you best describe getting out of trial phase and moving into not just deployment phase, but scalability and ideally reuse from one deployment to another, so it's not bespoke and custom every time? Sandra, I'll start with you.
Well, I think this is a key question for all of us, and probably one of the main challenges when coming with new solutions to a portfolio. In our case, our experience says that it's necessary to go through pilots and trials almost in every solution. So doing custom projects is inevitable in all of our new verticals. But in the end, the product approach has come with a lot of insights of how to put things together through platforms, which is one of the key assets we put as replicable and scalable today for our customers for different things, especially in the field of big data and data analytics, where we come with specific vertical solutions that we can replicate easily, even though there are sometimes integrations to do or customizations needed, but the main product today is focused 80% on parametrical, customized platforms through standard parameters, not with custom integrations.
Okay, perfect. Francis, how are you guys approaching that?
So this is I think this is the $1 million question, actually. How do you achieve scale and how you work on that? So two things, I think. So the way we approached this was we started from the customer. So we started not a sort of an inside out approach, but an outside in approach. What do I mean by that? We started defining, first of all, what kind of customers do we want to serve, in which verticals. Then we started investigating basically what will be the standard use cases. And then we understood, okay, we can be here in a sort of, if you want to call it, pilot purgatory forever, where you never leave that area of piloting one project after another. And so we basically started asking the customers, what would it take for you to take that vote of confidence and move into a realization, to the proactive realization. What we found out very quickly was that if the customers see us as a partner that can grow with them, so start small but keep pushing with the customer to grow into maturing of the business of the customer, that is basically, that was the key aspect for us to move very quickly out of piloting into real scenarios. Let me give you a couple of examples without mentioning customers, of course. We had one B2C device manufacturer, and we started with them when they were very small, but we stayed all the time in improving and improving. Today, they're one of the major, basically industry-defining companies in the area, right? So and that growth went from very low volumes into right now very high volumes. The same happens with customers having, for example, and I fully agree with Sandra, what Sandra mentioned. You need to have the aspiration to have at least 80% of the solution should be ready. And then 20% will be integration and customization. Integration, because at the end of the day, if you provide an end-to-end solutions, and that's what we do around IoT and machine learning, you need to integrate into the areas of the customer, into the systems of records of the customers, into those SAP, Oracles, whatever it is what the customer has in the backend. And so you need to have also, and that's an important thing, if you know that you're going to be delivering end-to-end solutions, you need to have a development team in place. You need to have a configuration team in place that will adapt the solution accordingly. And you need to have the proper solution engineers and solution architects to do that kind of, co-innovation work with the customer from the very beginning. And last but not least, it's super important to have a team that takes care, like a customer success management, taking care that the solution is really being used and understanding what are the usage patterns. Is the customer happy with that? Any other use cases? What else can we do, right? And so we configured ourselves around those principles of making sure that we understand what the customer is going on, in which direction it's going. And today we have, a little bit more than 500 different customers in different areas of the stack. And of course, not all of them are super complex. Some of them are really tiny, simple connectivity customers. But those that we have been able to work with and to stay in touch with, they have been extremely, extremely helpful in us moving from piloting into real, real life realization, into life setup. So to put it in a nutshell, being very close to the customer, that's the number one thing in our experience. And the second is configure yourself for customer success. And then that so not configuring yourself for optimizing costs and optimizing scalability, internal scalability, but optimizing customer success is the key for us.
Perfect. Thank you. That was great. Alex, how does Proximus see this ability to scale, or examples that you may have?
Personally, I'm quite happy and pleased about the way we tackle this, and I think we got out of the POC syndrome for maybe many reasons, and by working on different aspects of the challenge. The first one, I would say, being the way we design our solutions. So we very quickly decided not only to offer connectivity or installation or sensors, but also directly to move to cloud, to IoT cloud platforms. And we developed a full stack of microservices, being able really to play with Lego blocks to very quickly develop solutions for customers. And then, and maybe that's the chance of, sorry, of not putting IoT in only an innovation team. Actually, in my organization, we also deal with all massified solutions like MPLS, mobile, and all these stuff. So actually, we really reused our way of working to really get out of this innovation syndrome. And maybe one of the most important things for us was that we did not, and we consciously did not run only for the very complex and sexy projects. Of course, you can find very nice innovations, and then you apply the design thinking with customer. It's a long process. It can be very exciting for both parties, but even if you implement and you make more than a POC, it's not that easy to replicate the solution. That's why we made actually a choice to also develop very soon end-to-end solutions. And we really centered end-to-end solutions in two key domains. One of these domains was all what is related to smart monitoring. And the other domain was really relying on data analytics. So using our cellular network data to really derive a lot of crowd monitoring, a real-time crowd monitoring system, analytics, and so on and so forth. And starting from that, we really developed solutions that are easily replicable. And maybe I can give a few examples for these. For smart monitoring, for instance, we created various solutions. One in art, smart art, so it's monitoring of art pieces, and we have a partner that sells that. It's just temperature, humidity, shock monitoring, and this kind of stuff. Actually, it's quite simple. You need to find a good sensor. You need to modelize it very quickly, have a nice visualization interface, and find the right partner that can then do the commercialization of the solution. We did the same for gas tanks in Belgium. So there we started with one gas tank provider by really transforming the way they actually monitor their tanks by saying, okay, if you really connect the tank, you can improve on a lot of aspects. You can improve your planning. You can really control the supply and demand. You have a better customer experience because no one needs anymore to call you to fill in the tanks. I mean, many of these benefits are quite obvious. And if you make a business case with the customer, you say, okay, well, let's go for it. But then this industry is kind of not so competing. And actually, we replicated nearly directly the solution from one customer to the other solution, to the other customer, and then the other customer. So actually, we really have one customer use case that we then replicate very, very quickly. The same happens for analytics. We developed also due to COVID situation entrance monitoring solutions. So we actually help shopping malls or shops to show visually and in real time to people what is the load or the pressure, the people pressure in the shop. And actually, it's also a simple solution because it's putting some sensor to count, having a visualization interface, and allowing also some alarming if you go beyond certain thresholds. So we sold it to big shopping malls in Brussels. We also sold it to Decathlon, and now in France we sold it, I think, to Leroy Merlin, to other of these big customers. And actually, again, you have one not so complex solution, but very appealing, very simple to understand. And if you go to and if you sign one customer, it's quite easy then to go to the other retailer and say, okay, you're exactly in the same situation. So we sold to Leroy Merlin, and just afterwards we sold to Monsieur Bricolage in France. So you see, it's kind of the replicability is also linked to the simplicity of the solution, the visualization of it, the fact that we really use the microservices aspect, and that we use actually a way of marketing, of selling, of identifying customer potentials that is not specifically linked to IoT, but that can also be applied to other domains. And then finally, and I joined also what Francis said about doing success management on a customer. You can start sometimes with one project and then really expand it very much on new use case and other use case, or even a bigger use case if the customer is satisfied with the MVP or the first wave. And then we have also a very, I think, nice use case, for instance, with BBAT, but I don't know, maybe I'm too long in my explanation, so you just interrupt me if I give too many examples. But that's maybe a last one. It's a customer. BBAT is active across some countries, Belgium, France, and other countries in Europe. And what they do is they collect the batteries. And actually, we started phase 1 with them in 2016 by connecting something like more than 1,000 of their big collection points, so that they could optimize the route to reduce the truck roll cost and so on and so forth. They were really convinced because they had like a cost cut of 25%, which was quite huge. And then actually they said, we are so convinced that now instead of rolling out for 1,000 collection points, we want to roll it out for 23,000 collection points, which we are not now just busy rolling out. And so there the success was really indeed to have a very solid and robust business case for the customer. If the customer has a 25% cut on his cost, you don't need to convince him a lot to expand it. And then he will look at you in other aspects. Is your support robust enough? Do you have service manager? Do you have project managers? Can you support me also in the rollout, on the mass rollout of all these locations? And there the critical assets can be delivered, especially very well if you're an integrated operator.
Perfect. Alex, thank you. Great examples there. And that makes me think, you know, as you look to, you mentioned being able to expand and roll out and do a larger scale deployment, like 23,000 locations. One of the conversations I really want to get to are partnerships. How many of you obviously have had to join up, you know, whether it's buying a company or just simply having a strategic partnership to really get to offer those types of, you know, full end-to-end, you know, we can help you from cradle to grave. So I'd love to kind of hear a partnership conversation and any key ones that you can call out. Francis, let me start with you.
Yep. Okay. Thank you, Karen. This is a very crucial part. If you look at the value chain of IoT, for example, right? So it starts with the sensors and the firmware in the sensors, then it goes into connectivity, the IoT platform, all the analytics that you need to perform, application building, right, up to integration into the different systems of records of the client. Now, if you look at this value chain, it's almost impossible that one company does it all from, you know, out of its own intellectual strength. And so what we did is we started partnering with very crucial parts of this value chain. So first and foremost, we have a partnership with on the part of the, you know, on the IoT platform, we partner with Software AG, right? So this is our best foot forward. We have other platforms, but it's our best foot forward when it comes to discuss IoT platforms. We have a partnership with BigML on the machine learning platform. These are our two partners. And then we have solution partnerships for specific areas, right? So for example, for fleet management, we have standardized solutions for fleet management. We have a partnership on the business application side with info around enterprise asset management, so that we can do digital twins and create the full stack of visualization of effectiveness and efficiency gains through IoT in industrial assets. Then, well, of course, we coming from a telco perspective, we have our own connectivity platform. That's kind of our core things, but we also have partnerships with sensor companies and partnerships with let's say companies that will do certain type of very complex adaptation and development of firmware according to the scenario that we have. Sometimes our scenarios are very complex. Just to give you an idea, if someone tells you, look, the target pricing that I have for this type of connected device is $3, and I'm going to have 750,000 of those per year, this is a huge project, but it's very difficult to get a device of this type down, designed to the level of $3 per device. And so there you need to do engineering. So you need to take away all the standardization things that you've learned and go and develop a device for that specific customer and do all the co-engineering with that specific customer. And so these are things that you need to be prepared to do. And that's also part of the partnership. You need to have teams that can cope with the level of, let's say, technological complexity that your partners will be taking care of. So you cannot have just a partner doing something and you have no idea what the partner is doing. That's not going to work. So you need to have teams that understand the platform, teams that work day in, day out on the platform. And then the next level, which is, I think, equally important, is understanding. So you have a level above, but you also have a level below. So, for example, on the level above of the stack, you have the application layer, and on this application layer, you need to have partners that build applications for you and with you. But you also need to have your development team, as I said, that will work and build applications on top of those platforms. On the level below, which is the level of, let's say, cloud. What we did also, we took a very different approach from many others. We invested ahead of time into our own European cloud platform. So we have our own cloud. It's called exoscale.com. And all of our platforms, so the platforms in my team that we develop in my team and the platforms that we operate in my team, they're all operated on the cloud stack. And so we have 2 times a full stack. We have a full stack from the left to the right, so from the value chain of IoT, but we also have a full stack from top to bottom. So in terms of the cloud is ours, and then we can configure pricing very differently. So we don't depend on hyperscalers, we don't depend on other cloud providers, and we can provide configured full stack solutions. So that's how far our partnership thinking will go into understanding that if we need to acquire something to be encapsulated enough to offer preferential conditions to our clients, and all the topics around European data sovereignty and GDPR and compliance and all these things, that's how far we went into investing into that area. So we have a cloud stack. We also have a security team that takes care of providing security consulting, both at the firmware level, but also at the enterprise architecture level. And so we try to provide basically, I would say, a 360 solution stack to our clients, but obviously with partners included and embedded in there.
Perfect. Yeah, that definitely sounds like a complete, to your point, 360 view. That I'm assuming obviously can't be done overnight. Generally, how long did it take you to kind of combine all of those in the?
So we basically we're known for being fast and furious. So it took us 3 years to get to where we are right now. So we started the company, A1 Digital started 2017, February 2017, and I think around year 2.5, we were already where we are right now. So with the cloud, with security, with all the integration. But again, when you're so fast, you have obviously you need to make compromises somewhere else, right? So it's not an easy ride if you try to do this out of let's say standardized approach. That's why we took a very different position, we really spun off the company. So we are a different company within the A1 group. We are a completely different company. We obviously will work very close with A1, with all the OpCos operating countries, but we are a different company because we require a different setup, a different level of trust, a different level of scalability, a different level of technology insight, and different type of, even if you wish, different type of people to a certain degree, right? Yeah, so that's what we did.
Perfect, thank you. Sandra, I'd like to kind of hear from your side, especially coming from a very, very large Telefonica organization. Can you give us your thoughts on partnerships and how you gather your talent and come up with that ability to do end-to-end?
Sure. Well, I think partnerships are the main area of work we have together in the new business direction, because to build this complex environment of vertical solutions, partners are essential to complete this matrices from vertical solutions layers and overall the ecosystem. So I think the key at Telefonica, as you say, as we are a huge company with strong and sometimes all processes and difficult to handle in terms of time, to push the new solutions and to be able to scale them. We need to approach partnerships from two different strategies. From one side, we partner with big partners, big corporations to provide robustness to the main things regarding main cloud providers, hardware manufacturers, important system integrators, and we need them because when we are going to scale, we go through the other way, the other way around. We go through small companies. Probably many of them are not startups, but scale-ups and SMEs that come with really disruptive solutions that we need to mature at our rhythm, but taking into consideration that we are working together, scale-ups with huge corporations. So putting this together, I think, is one of the main challenges. And to go to market with this kind of disruptive solutions, we have to keep simple, and simplicity is the key for scalability as well. And then provide the assurance to the customers that we are providing the services with the level of standardization, with the availability, and with the security processes. So our core areas now are focused on cybersecurity, on cloud services, IoT, and big data. And here we have our own capabilities and teams working to develop the core value of the solutions and helping these small and medium-sized companies to industrialize their solutions together with us, go to market. So this process has been tough and sometimes not successful, of course. I would say that for one solution that ends in the market as a portfolio solution, industrialized one, 9 of them are at the bottom of the desk in the end of the year. So it's a hard process where a lot of companies go through these phases of proof of concepts, trials, and then custom projects, and then trying to scale. But the point is that once there is a fit with the market, there is a right to play for Telefonica, and there is a value proposition together and not reselling, because reselling, having a portfolio of partners for reselling solutions is not complex. The important thing is that if you want to be a differentiator, you want to go ahead in the market, you have to provide core value, and this core value for us has a easy formula. At least for now, this year, we found a key for success, which is putting together IoT solutions coming from external companies, very specialized in disruptive use cases, with our capabilities for machine learning and artificial intelligence. This is bringing a lot of success. It's easy to replicate, easy to deploy, and in the process, we have a lot of examples that the process is coming with these scale-ups that brings what they say commercial products, but in reality, they are still minimum viable products or a bit more into the processes of operations, commercial and business models. and the roadmap of integration together with our capabilities and platform to reach the final version of it. So I think it's a difficult puzzle because in many of the solutions, we have at least 2 or 3 partners together of different sizes. And we have to have a clear strategic approach from the very beginning to get to the end version of the solution we want to commercialize afterwards in the market with success. But we already have some of them regarding agriculture, drones, sports, industrial maintenance and preventive maintenance solutions, other for device, LTE networks, and all the use cases related to low latency. And I would say that without partners, we wouldn't have any of them.
Fantastic. And of course, this is the time when my phone decides to ring. So you mentioned working with these smaller companies and these disruptors. Can you share a little bit of how you are finding them? Because obviously there's so many of them. I can't imagine, they are necessarily easy to find. So you must be doing something to go find them.
Yes, this is something we have changed a lot for the last 3 years. We started doing a search of solutions we thought we were needing through our venture capital area to the incubator of the company. And then we went to an open innovation approach, but also pushing and trying to find whatever we were looking for. But after some years of not very good experiences when trying to get further and not only doing this trials and POCs, we changed the approach from pushing to pulling. So now we have a scouting program in my area called the Telephonic Activation Program that involves different technologies and platforms of the company. And the idea is to help small and medium-sized companies that, first of all, an important declaration, want to work with Telefónica to have access, free access for a period of time to many of our platforms and assets with specialized technical support and with opportunities of business development, real opportunities to go to our end customers together in the way of pilots of custom projects, but together or in parallel, validating the solution and the willingness of the market of having this kind of solutions. So we have a double tool here to validate from a technical perspective to better know the teams in place and together with the customers and having direct feedback during a period of time, and having the opportunity of getting invested from our BC corporate area in the future, but also having the opportunity to sign an agreement of commercialization so that we have a approach that goes with more and more maturity with the time. It usually takes from 6 to 12 months to validate a solution. And afterwards, if we decide to accelerate, this is the fast track, it takes an extra year to get to a mature solution, but in most of the cases. This is because we have to integrate strong with some of our core assets, for instance, with the connectivity platform, the machine learning platform, the sports platform, the blockchain platform, or whatever. But then we have a common roadmap of layers of value, and sometimes we have to add some things on top, especially regarding artificial intelligence right now, but in many cases, and helping them to industrialize the IoT side, because in terms of cost, when you scale, they have to change, our partners, especially the small ones, have to change their processes of manufacturing, assembly, delivery, the logistics of their things and their physics solutions. So we have these partnerships with the big integrators and scalers and engineering firms that helps them to go to this next step in the path of massification of the solution. And this is hard. This is not work of 3 or 6 months, but in the end, it's providing a different approach for us. And overall, I think the success right now is higher. I would say that 3 or 4 years ago, it was almost none of the companies we were working with we're coming to a portfolio solution. And right now it's almost 30% that the ones we decide to accelerate get to this. So the change has been having clear from the very beginning that they are companies willing to work with us. And this first question, having a yes as an answer, has been easing the path of collaboration from the very beginning to the end of the process.
Super. Okay, thank you. Very different approaches between the two companies there. So Alex, your turn. I'm wondering if you're kind of hybrid between the two here. How are you looking at partnerships?
It's maybe a hybrid, but I think we are more at the side of Sandra, I would say, working a bit the same way. So of course we have partnerships for the platform. So we are a Vodafone partner market. So of course this is an important partnership. We have partnerships even because we have our own IoT platform for the BSS with specific providers there, sensor partnerships, Microsoft, SAP partnerships, all these stuff that are actually key building blocks, because as mentioned by Sandra as well, once a solution needs to get industrialized, or if the customer needs to or wants to get beyond the POC, he wants also to see that we are able to integrate. And for instance, we expose our IoT APIs into SAP HANA, Leonardo. So it helps actually to really integrate with ERPs and such kind of stuff. It's an important aspect. I would say that maybe that's for the enablers, but for us, the most important part of partnership is more, I would say, at the downstream side. So we started when we started the IoT Competence Center within Proximus 7 years ago. So we took the conscious decision of not creating a subsidiary for it, but really trying to keep, like, you know, corporate venturing approach. So really having an agile unit, but inside a bigger company. And there we also took the very conscious choice to directly create an ecosystem and positioning ourselves as the Intel of IoT. So we were really open towards application service providers to help them actually integrating our building blocks into their solutions, because they would have the vertical knowledge, they would have the use case knowledge. And actually we left them from the beginning the choice of really choosing the integration level they want with Proximus assets. They could just use, you know, basic network building blocks, or we can also process the sensor information for them, process and formatting, or even deriving the decision rules from them, so they can really have this choice in function of their IT literacy. And that proved to be a successful strategy, because we have now an ecosystem of more than 250 application service providers on our platforms, with something like 50 different use cases. By use case, I mean, you know, you have, for instance, I don't know, 5 or 6 that are busy with track and trace, some busy with HVAC monitoring, whatever. So we can really recluster them in these big use cases. And we see really traction, and we are more in a pull scenario. So I mean that, of course, I have, you know, people that are really busy with partner management and really supporting these partners. But I have to say that this is a more pull thing than a push, and it's quite a vibrant ecosystem and a very solid one. And then we also decided to take another step, not only to the community of startups or scale-ups and application service provider. We wanted also to offer something to customers that would like to code themselves, or typically even the very small developers community. And so a few years ago, we launched ENCO, so enabling company. So it's really a .io interface, where there the customers or developers can get access to not only IoT sensor APIs, but also any other APIs they might need to create a solution. So of course, in many use cases, you also need SMS A2P API to send a notification or the alarming, or you want to have access to a real-time crowd monitoring API to know where the people. So all these stuff are put available on our enabling company API platform. Also with CPaaS assets and visual builders that allow also not only companies of like 10 or 20 or 50 or 200 employees to start playing with it, but also other types of profiles. So that's the second track that we followed. And then because we are an integrated ICT provider, we also did some acquisition in the IT field. And so we really invested a lot in cybersecurity or IT installation assets. And it's really complementary to the stack. So it's not only about partnerships, it's also for some fields a choice to actually do some M&A to acquire the competence, not for the single sake of IoT, because for instance, cybersecurity, Belgium is a small country, but we host NATO, EU, and all these nice institutions, and many of them use our cybersecurity services. So actually, you can just use or reuse, these assets, and actually also include them in the IoT field. And then we also, since I would say maybe 2 years or 3 years, sign some strategic partnerships, and these are really in the perspective of jointly creating an ecosystem on a specific vertical or use case. Some of them are under NDA, some of them are public. On the public one, for instance, we decided to join force with Basics, which is a construction company, very big one in Belgium and also in the world. Actually, they built the biggest tower in the world. Is that Burj Khalifa still, or I don't know. Maybe it's another one, a taller one. I don't know. But actually, it's a company busy with buildings and concrete. And you could say, but why do you peer with this company? Because actually, a lot of our customers are expecting us on the smart building field, because we connect them. They say, okay, you help connect my building, you do everything in digital workplace in this building, but now also help me in getting this building communicating directly with the end user. And therefore, these type of use case, you have a lot of IoT use cases, but also it's another type of discussion, and you need to get access to another type of DMU. So you need to even be in another part of the sales cycle, because as an ICT company, if you come up with a smart building solution on a brand new building that has already been built or designed, or I mean, it's too late. And by associating with a construction company, we can really actually join our forces and enter into a very interesting vertical. And it's really now a bit at the heart of many of the challenges we have in terms of circular economy, another way of using space and energy. And so we see all that stuff. And there, of course, as from our role, we are there also to provide the digital twins and all the ICT or IoT related aspects. The same for drones. I think Sandra just mentioned it. It's the same for us as well. We just joined force with some companies to create a drone ecosystem in Belgium. We just announced it. And then so it's a very important field also, these type of strategic partnerships for very specific adjacencies that we choose and for which we see enough potential also in terms of replicability. And then maybe a last one, because it's really about digital transformation more than IoT, it's touching many stuff and process in the day-to-day life of our customers. We thought that we would need to have some help also from a consulting company to really actually even broaden the scope, and really for really radical changes, being able to guide customers also on a real transformation agenda that goes much beyond IoT. That's why we also just signed a strategic partnership with a consulting company. And we start typically on smart retail, helping retailers also with all what's happening in the COVID situation. How can they reinvent themselves going phygital, but really fully phygital? and take the advantage of best of both worlds. So as you see, it's very vast. I would not say it's all about partnerships, because it's also very important that we keep a very strong reason to be in these partnerships. So as mentioned by Sandra, we do not do, you know, like pure reselling partnership. We are not interested in getting in a position of being a VAR, a value-added reseller, but we are really interested in an open collaboration where we can really join some assets. So it takes many dimensions, and I hope what I explained was clear.
Yeah, no, and there certainly seems to be some, you know, themes coming up of obviously everyone needs to figure out how to add value and not just resell a solution. And then, you know, the other one that keeps coming up is having that expertise in certain areas, and that, I think, if nowhere else, is where those partnerships come into play, because, you know, there are a lot of experts in certain fields that are incumbents that have been doing this for decades, you know, around oil and gas, for example, and trying to, you know, do that organically on your own, I just don't think is feasible. So obviously it makes sense to do partnerships in those areas. One of the things, actually, Sandra, you touched on it a little bit earlier, of learning, what I'll call learning from maybe a failure, or learning from things that didn't work. And sometimes understanding what doesn't work is more helpful than, you know, knowing or believing what is working. And you mentioned, you know, changing from a push to a pull strategy of, you know, one of those things that you learned early on, and then you changed as a result of that. Do you have any other examples of things that didn't work that helped you figure out, you know, what is a better approach? And I'll go ahead and start with you, Sandra, since you were the one that made me think of this.
Well, there are many things we learned during the years, of course. I would say it depends on the phase of maturity you are. In the phase of scouting, the main thing was changing this strategy from pushing to pulling. And then once we are validating solutions, which means we have to have a technical approval that this is consistent enough, and have a validation from the market that the desirability is enough as well. The commercial process is easier, but the technical side, so many times we were losing one part of the puzzle when trying to validate, and then afterwards was a mess when coming into a major solution. And this is the operational part of the solution, because when you are running talks and trials and special projects, the operational approach is absolutely different to the one you have when you have scalable and massive solutions. So many times we were coming with supposed to be more mature solutions after many projects to operational areas of the companies, and they were screaming and saying, "Oh, what are you bringing to the table today? This is far away from the operational models we have in place for any solutions of the company. So you have to change everything." And it's like, oh, I have to go back 6 months and start building everything from scratch. So the thing we learned from the validation phase is you have to align in the operational and support side of the solution from the very beginning to ensure this won't be a problem in the future. And once we have a mature solution, I think the phase of acceleration is tough, because it is not a standard solution already, but it's close to be. So it is not in the commercial objectives of anyone from the very beginning. This is still something new. So the way we go to the market sometimes has two main problems. If you leave the product go through the commercial teams just as a mature one, you lose the direct feedback from customers. And we want to give this feedback from the product area. So we are getting not that close to customers once we go more mature, but we still need this direct feedback to continue improving these first versions and iterations of the product. And on the other hand, when we go direct, we lose the traction of the commercial sales force. So it has a difficult compromise. and because you have to decide when to transfer to a mature phase and to say give the or consider the solution and that from a new business perspective to become core business or standard solutions. And the transition is hard because once it is a mature solution, it has a lot of implications in the way we run it and we operate it, and in the way we have to continue with the commercial traction, but also with the with the startup mentality to continue improving in agile ways the performance of it. So this is something very challenging.
Okay, that's great. Francis, since you really are more what I'd call in that startup phase, since you spun out as a separate company, what sort of learnings did you have along the way?
Well, I think the learnings, a lot of learnings. Let me clarify a little bit. So we are a separate company, but we of course work very closely with the rest of the group, right? So for example, we and Sandra was thank you for reminding me about that. So basically we have also our startup incubators, right? So we don't have a VC arm per se, but we have an incubator where we have a couple of startups, and yes, we work with them as well. What we have seen is that we remain extremely focused on our verticals. We remain extremely focused on our customers. And that for us is been the main source of growth. Okay, so yes, we try to get the best of both worlds. So on the one hand side, we have we are part of a large company or a huge company, right? So A1 Group is a 4 billion company, and it's part of America Mobile, which is a 54 billion company. So we have the financial, basically, I would say robustness of a large company. But we behave like a startup. So, for example, we not only behave like a startup because we say we are cool. That's not the point. We don't run with MacBooks and white sneakers. That's not the point of being cool. You know, the point we really go and work with customers in innovation projects, and so we need to behave in a way that is conducive to bringing that customer to the next level. So that's all of our focus. And if you look at the way we interact with customers, we try to be very differentiating for our customers. We understand that IoT projects and machine learning projects, they are transformational projects. Once there's one company before IoT, and there will be another company before IoT. So what we tell our customers is, look, if you want to produce connected products, and it doesn't matter what kind of connected products you want to produce, whether this is connected trash bins or a connected HVACs, you will have something that you never had before, which is because of that product being connected, you will have immediate feedback. Your customers will start giving you immediate feedback. Are you ready for immediate feedback? And if you take the next step, which is going into this type of digital business model where pay per use or pay per part or whatever type of business model it is that you want to go, now you have it's even worse because now the device that you produced is still on your books. It's your device. You're just renting it out. Are you ready for that? So we try to support our customers. And like Alex mentioned, yes, we do also the consulting parts of the consulting. And when our consulting and digital workshops are not enough because we don't have the knowledge of the industry, we bring partners with us that will help us transform that customer. So I really, the learning for us is that staying close to the customers and making the customers more relevant in this huge arms race, which is digitization, that is what has kept us really on the growth path, right? If we look at have we, negative learnings, I could talk for hours about things that we will do differently. But actually, it's always the same, right? This is this Anna Karenina principle, like, all unhappy marriages are unhappy in their own special way. In this case, it's a little bit different. I think what we have done very well is, again, focus on the customers and focus on what makes our customers successful, right? So that's the one thing I think that is common ground for everything that we've done. And then again, what are we doing much better? Well, we need to focus much better on scaling. That's important, right? So minimizing the number of experiments we do, that's important. Very consciously leaving part of the value chain out of our control and giving it to trusted partners that will execute on that. The other thing that I think we will improve is we will start verticalizing the solutions even more. So now that we have this kind of triple play cloud security and vertical solutions, we want to make sure that we bring that to our clients and make sure that they understand that they have a partner that can work on all those 3 dimensions with them at the same time. And I think this is an important value proposition. So we are part of Gaia X, which is the European cloud and data sovereignty initiative. So we are day 1 member, and we are trying to start we're thinking into different dimensions of what does it mean to be part of a European data platform. What does it mean to provide data services? What kind of discoverability options you need to have for your clients? So all of this is also new for us because it's new for the whole world. And so we try to focus on the type of, let's say, top-notch experiments that we do, but at the same time being very focused on providing the right value for the customer. And one thing that is also, at least our experience is, all theory is perfect until you face the lawyer of the customer telling you, no, I'm not going to do this part of the contract. And no, that part of the contract, that's not good for us. And so that's where the scaling theory stops. Now you need to make the tough decision. Do you continue or do you take the business? And that's, I think, something that we've done very, very accurately. So never compromising on the value of the customer, but still being able to refocus and reshift the way we do things so that we accommodate our customers, because we've seen many customers asking the same thing. So basically, for example, pushing the responsibility for support and managed services to us, saying, I don't have the team in place to take care of this complex solution, so you take care of that, right? And so all of a sudden we need to have our own very focused approach on how we're going to do managed services, how we're going to improve this product. And then all of a sudden the language moved from project into product. And this is just because the managed services linked both worlds, right? The pilot project or the project with a product, because now you're doing managed services. Now you need to learn how to scale that part. So this is kind of the learnings that we've had so far. But again, I don't want to take much time into that.
No, that was great. And the legality, lawyers are important, but sometimes they don't necessarily help move things forward. Not my most favorite part of the job.
I would say, really, in all honesty, that lawyers are super important for our clients because they try to minimize the risks that our clients are. All of our clients, and we don't have the large clients we don't work with the Volkswagens of the world or with the with the Teslas of the world. This is not the classic customer of A1 Digital. We are more into upper medium businesses, right? International businesses, but upper medium businesses. And so in that regard, every time they are trying to discuss something related to machine learning, to IoT, to cloud, to security, is something that is to a certain degree not completely out of their comfort zone, but it's not something where they have the full understanding and the full capabilities. And so lawyers are super important to minimize the risk. So creating a matrix that is as risk, let's say, conscious as possible in this collaboration, and to put us as partners and implementation partners in our place. Our place is to support them, not the other way around, right? And so therefore it's super important that the lawyers on the customer side, they take care of what is important, what is less important, where do I compromise, where I don't compromise. We do the same on our side, and at the end, that's where we come together. And up to now, we've had a very good experience. So, for example, we've been selected by Gartner last year as part of the IoT managed services, managed connectivity services, the global. So the Magic Quadrant, A1 Digital is one of those selected in there. And when you read so what put us in there was the customers, the interviews, and how much focus we put on the customers. It's not always perfect, but it's what we try to do.
Yeah, your outside in perspective, obviously, I think is very important for all of us. I know we're starting to run out of time. I don't see any Q&A, but Alex, I want to give you, if you can give me, and I know we've truncated the time for you, unfortunately, can you give me, if you had to pick one key learning from, either, and I hate to use the word failure, but I think learning from failure is actually really important. Could you give us one learning?
I would say it's about making choices. Really, it may sound like, it's easy to say, but no, it's really that, because when you talk about, innovation and digital transformation, anything is possible, or anything looks possible at, at the beginning of the trip. And maybe in the past years, when we were saying, okay, we are going to launch end-to-end solutions, the first thought was, okay, let's launch like 15 or 20 of them. And then we totally changed, and we say, no, let's really focus on a few of them, for the exact reason that was mentioned by Sandra, because then at some moment you need to scale them up, and you need to be able to sell them. So the way we work, we have specialized sales. So I have specialized sales in my organization that then really bring these solutions, but to the customers. But even these people need focus, and it's good that they try to replicate their stuff. And then when it's mature enough, you can indeed transfer it to more generic account managers. So I think what we do now is really work on a limited number of use cases, limited number of verticals. We let all the diversity of the 50 major use cases I was referring to. Yeah, they are done by our ecosystem of partners, and each of them has also made his own choice. But for ourselves, we try really to focus, and focus is even, and maybe if I can be complimentary to Sandra and Francis, is focus is also true for choosing your customer, because then it loops back a bit to the beginning of our discussion. How do you get out of the POC? But you get out of POC if you really select your customer. It takes two to tango. It's also true with your customer, because actually, if you at the end of a design thinking or a first conversation of POC, you feel that the customer is not convinced because the TCO is maybe not okay, or maybe even the level of the person to which you talk to is not actually entitled to take this big transformation decision for the company, or whatever reason, then you better actually stop the project. And that's something we do also more and more, is actually, instead of keeping, like that shape of funnel, you say you have your funnel and it goes down, we better go very quickly down on the funnel and keep fewer customers, but really customers that are really convinced by the solution, and for which we are also convinced that we can bring value to them. So we don't force anyone. And it even happened to me that I told to a customer, look, it was an insurance company after a POC, and the guy was telling me, the CMO of that company was telling me, if the POC, so we were signing for the POC, if the POC is successful, I have an issue. And I asked him, but why would you have an issue? It's splendid if the POC is successful. And he told me, no, because then I will have to implement it. And as an insurance company, it was about, IoT-based insurance. I will take a risk, which I fully understand. I will take a certain risk because my revenue will go down. I will have maybe to discount customer. But then what happens if my business case is not fully right? And I remember very well, I told the CMO, you know what, we are not going to sign the POC with you. It's better not to do the POC. It's better that you first being sure about it. Then we don't want to push and force you, because we will put a team on it. All the teams, we have scarce resource everywhere. So these teams will work for a project on which you do not really believe. And maybe it's strange, but I think then the customer is also maybe grateful for that, because maybe they would expect, oh yeah, he will push his solution, and he will push. I mean, but no, if you're not convinced, then let's not do it. The only one that really wanted to kill me after that was the sales guy, because actually, yeah, he was ready with his contract, and we stopped it because there was no use to do that. So it's also about making choice on the vertical, on the use case, and also on the customers, to make sure that we are really convinced, mutually convinced, that we can change stuff and that it brings value. Otherwise, we just lose too much energy in projects.
That's great. I love that. And on that note, I thank you all. I think this has just been a great conversation, and great panelists. Chris, over to you to close us out.
Yeah, just quickly to say thank you to the panel. I thought that was really interesting. Yeah, thank you to everyone who watched, and yeah, hopefully, yeah, see you soon for another virtual panel. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Karen.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Sandra. Thanks, Alex. Bye.
Bye.